Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of the Esoteric Wellness Blog. I am your host, Coach Kyle. Today, I wanted to discuss something that might offend some of you because this is something that we're literally all guilty of. Myself, you are, everyone is. Something we all do, but I wanted to talk about because I think it's something that is so accepted in our culture and society, yet really in big ways prolongs a lot of our suffering, increases a lot of our suffering. And what I want to talk about is complaining. So, first of all, what do I mean by complaining? Well, complaining is when, let's say, for example, yesterday I had an interaction with another person that maybe didn't go the way I wanted it to. Maybe it made me really upset, angry, frustrated, maybe hurt, whatever it might be. And then fast forward to today, and I'm complaining in the form of sharing that experience with someone else. Like, hey, you won't believe what happened between me and so yesterday. Oh, that's awful. It really, ticked me off. I'm so angry. I'm so upset. I can't believe they did that. That's complaining. You're sharing something, some event, some experience that you have had or is ongoing in your life that is causing you suffering in some way. Sharing that with another person, online, and writing with yourself. You're just even complaining to yourself in your own mind, whatever form that might take. But this is complaining. This is what I mean. So while it's very easy to complain, we all do it. I wanted to talk today about why this is not helping any of us. We feel in the moment like to complain is somewhat comforting, like to share our misery makes it somehow less miserable. But that's not really the case. That's not really what happens. So let's talk about that. When I reshare, complain about an experience I had, say yesterday, we'll go back to my example. This conversation I had with someone, this interaction that did not go well, it caused me suffering. So I complain about it to a friend, a loved one, whoever it might be. What that does is it forces me in some ways to relive, re-experience that suffering. Those unpleasant emotions I felt come back, maybe not as intensely, but they return. I feel those feelings again. I feel that suffering again. And maybe that spins me into a whole process of anxiety, worry, whatever it might be, that also causes suffering. All because I felt the need to complain about it. So every time we complain, we relive that suffering in some way. So that right there should key us in on the fact that complaining is not making us feel better. It's actually making us feel worse. It's prolonging, increasing our suffering. Now, in Eastern traditions like Buddhism, this would be described as we have an attachment to our suffering. And our attachment to that suffering, the suffering is somehow of value to us, and we don't want to let it go. So we complain about it to re experience it, hold on to it, rather than letting it go. Just not talking about it, just moving on with our lives would be, in a way, letting go of that suffering. But we're attached to it. It is providing some value, some meaning to us. So we consistently relive it. We bring it back up to the surface by complaining in probably many other ways. And from a neuroscience perspective, what we're doing is we're teaching our brain that that event was maybe worse than it actually was. First of all, we're bringing up those emotions. We're feeling those emotions again. We're reactivating our nervous system, our fight or flight response, stress response. Our brain sees that, it sees a threat. And every time we're recalling that memory, every time we recall any memory, our brain changes it a little bit. Maybe not the content, but at the very least, the meaning. And if I'm consistently recalling that memory and that's coming alongside activating my stress response and my nervous system, as well as unpleasant emotions that I don't like, that meaning that my brain attaches to that memory is going to consistently go in a direction every time it's recalled, re-experienced. My brain's going to assign a meaning of threat, of danger more intensely to that memory. So, once or twice, this isn't a big deal. But if I consistently complain about some thing, some event, some experience over months and years, my brain's going to have significantly changed the meaning of that event, that experience, to something that's really a big deal now. So much so that it can consume my thoughts, it can consume my emotions. I'm just spending a good majority of my time, my existence, reliving this suffering. And now, as that becomes more dangerous to your brain, now things associated with it, things that remind us of it, are triggering that whole thing. So, in this way, we are prolonging, we're increasing our suffering the more we complain about something. Meanwhile, we're thinking we're complaining to get comfort, to feel better, but that's not, in fact, what we're doing. Now, I want to differentiate here the difference between complaining and expressing our emotions. Okay. To express emotions about an experience, to let go of emotions, we have to feel them, to let them go, to express them. So, what this might look like, back to my original example. Yesterday, I had an interaction that didn't go the way I wanted. I'm really upset about it. So, expressing my emotions might look like, okay, maybe today I need to work through this. I need to feel my feelings. If I'm really pissed off, I'm angry, I'm going to let myself get angry. I'm going to express that anger. This could be by myself. This could be with someone I trust who can listen compassionately, empathetically. And I'm just going to feel what I feel. Now, this is good. This is therapeutic. This is one of the major ways in which we let go of these experiences of suffering that we have in our life. This is not complaining. I know on the surface they can look very, very similar. Whereas, let's say I talk with my wife to express emotions, that might be like, hey, I'm really feeling a lot of feelings about this. Can I share it with you? Can I express this to you? That's very different from just complaining to my wife about what happened yesterday. I might be expressing some emotions in complaining, but there is a difference and it might be subtle sometimes. But expressing emotions is definitely not, posting on social media or calling up, every friend I can think of to share my frustration about this experience with. That's complaining. That is not expressing emotions in a constructive way. And obviously, there's some gray area there. There's some overlap. It's not always perfectly cut and dry, obviously. But, this is often a big aspect of the work I do with clients. For example, a lot of times, clients with chronic pain or other chronic symptoms, I mean, they might spend the first session or two or three doing a lot of complaining, but also a lot of expressing their emotions behind it. And a big part of the process is, making that shift in them, helping them make that shift in themselves, that they don't need to define themselves by this suffering they're experiencing. They don't need to complain about it. Simple as that. And that shifts the power it has. To complain about your suffering gives that suffering more power over you. So, my question to all of you this week: what are you complaining about in your life? What suffering are you giving more power to? What suffering are you prolonging and increasing over time in your life? Give that some thought and maybe consider a different approach. Maybe expressing your emotions about it instead of complaining. Maybe simply not talking about it, not complaining about it, letting it go. And I know that's not a simple decision necessarily. That might be a process, and that's okay. So, something to think about. Thank you again, as always, for listening. And as always, you are beautiful, you are loved. Until next time.